seeing them become everything that they want to be. I love empowering people, but when I see my own children empowered and happy, that makes me really, really happy. That brings me the most joy.
Hello and welcome to the Ndini Podcast. I'm Sandra Chuma. Every week, I'm bringing you conversations with bold, inspiring, trailblazing, and influential women of African descent. These are women from all walks of life, women who are entrepreneurs, artists, social activists, athletes. Each one of them, in their own way, is changing the narrative on what it means to be an African woman. They'll be telling us about their journeys and sharing their secrets to success. And I hope that by hearing their inspiring stories, you will be inspired. Why don't you start by introducing yourself, your name, and tell me, who you are and what you do?
My name is Rumbi Bvunzawabaya. I was born as Rumbi Midzi. I was born in Zimbabwe and migrated to the UK about 20 years ago now. So I've lived in the UK for 20 years. I'm Zimbabwean. I live in Coventry. I am married to Muchada, and we've got 3 children. So we've got Tino, who's 20, Tanaka is 14, and then Tasha, who's 11. I'm a solicitor. I run a practice in Coventry, and I also run a charity called Migrant Family Support, which supports migrant families of African origin living in the UK. Yeah, and I'm a co-director of another company that my husband runs, which offers supported accommodation for young people aged 16 to 25.
Now, one thing that I hear, which is consistent in everything that you've described about yourself, is service and your willingness to help others. I mean, let's start with your company, as a solicitor. So you have, I know you just had your 10-year anniversary for your law firm?
Yes, we have, yes. Yeah.
What made you decide, first of all, to become a lawyer?
Well, I decided that I was going to be a lawyer when I was about 15, so when I was still in high school. And then I witnessed a lot of, in Zimbabwe where I grew up, there was a lot of abuse of women, and there was injustice in the laws and how women were treated. And my motivation at that point was to help women. I wanted to help women. I had a lady that I looked up to a lot. Her name is Runo Mungu, and she worked for a project called Masasa Project, and she was a lawyer and my cousin's girlfriend at some stage. So I really admired her and looked up to the work that she was doing. So that was my motivation, to do law to help women and to advance the rights of disadvantaged people. So at that point, it was women. So that's what motivated me to do law when I was quite young. And that was my subject choices. And then I went to university to study law. But I got derailed a bit when I came to the UK because I wasn't able to practice straight away. But I was still determined to always go back to law. So I managed to find my way back into law. And here it was, again, the motivation to help people who were disenfranchised, who were displaced, who were migrants who were living here. So there were many Zimbabweans who left Zimbabwe because of the political situation, the economic situation. And a lot of them were just wandering around here without any lawful residence, without status. And there were a lot of cowboys, like a lot of people who were doing just shoddy jobs and really dishonest. And so people were really struggling. So at that point, that's when I decided to go into immigration law, and that's the main law that we do is immigration law. And again, my motivation at that time was to help people. So that's always been, service, like you said.
Now, one of your clients describes you as authentic, sympathetic, sensitive, honest, and a no-nonsense practice. And that seems to be, from everything that as I was researching to prepare for this interview, that seemed to be the common thread that all of your clients who shared their experiences talked about. Like, tell me about how you run your law firm and what are those things what are the values that drive what you do and how you do it?
So our core values are honesty, and integrity and diligence, and having an excellent spirit in everything that we do. One of the things that perhaps differentiates us from other practitioners or other people is that I'm a Christian and run my businesses according to Christian values and principles. And so I find it difficult sometimes I do give people honest advice. And some of my friends who are solicitors say to me, you're not going to make a very good lawyer, because one of the things with lawyers is you sometimes you have to embellish the truth. So for me, I think that's one of the things that when with my clients, I do tell them, their chances of success. I'm quite honest with them and tell them, you can do this or do that, and that's how it is. So I'm quite honest with them. And also we are quite open to, when a person comes to us, we don't just see the person as we're sorting out a legal problem. We give over and above and deal with the whole person, which is why I ended up forming Migrant Family Support, because I think for me, the motivation was to help a person to achieve their best, to be the best that they can be, rather than just solving an immigration problem. So we are, our ethos is compassion, listening to people, treating them with respect that they deserve and with dignity. Because I think in this country, in the UK, immigrants, not just in the UK, I think across the world, immigrants are seen as, they're not treated with respect in some of the places that they go. So we try and treat everyone with the dignity and the respect that they deserve as individuals.
So tell me about Migrant Family Support. What is it? What does it support? What are the kinds of things that people can get from it?
Perhaps I'll just start with the background of why we started it. When people moved especially to the UK, initially for the first, we would say about 8-9 years, a lot of people didn't actually have lawful residence. So they couldn't bring their families over. So they were estranged from their husbands, wives, and their children. Then between 2009 and 2012, many families were reunited. And that was after a long gap. So with that came a lot of challenges to the family. And the services here that offer support to families are not tailored or well equipped, I think, to deal with the dynamics that come with that. So you would have, for example, a child left at the age of 2 in Zimbabwe, joining their parents when they're 15. So there's a 13-year gap where they haven't been with their parents and they don't know these people, and they just come and live with them. And they've all sorts of issues that have come up with there. So what we offer is support in parenting with emphasis on families that were separated, marriage support, and bereavement support. So we aim to educate, empower, and restore. So, for example, I'll give an example just to make it clear. So in the UK, a lot of migrants work in service industry, so in care, in nursing, and those are jobs that are traditionally done by women. So what we found is some of the men who have come here have really struggled to adjust. And then that causes a strain on the marriage and causes an effect on the parenting. And so what we would do with Migrant Family Support is offer marriage support to the couple, knowing that perhaps there's a man who may need to be empowered, to be upskilled so that they can reach their full potential as well. So what we aim to do is to educate, empower, and restore. So restoring the person, restoring their confidence, their sense of self-worth, self-value, the knowledge of who they are, educating them on the laws in this country, because the laws here are different to the laws in Zimbabwe. So like child protection, even laws on domestic violence and things like that are different. So education and empowerment. So we try to help holistically in helping people with the law element, but also seeing a person as an individual, helping them in restoration and helping them in empowerment. So what we've started with is our restoration. I think that's where we've done a lot of work, because we've seen that you need to restore the person. And in that we use Christian biblical principles through our freedom conferences, which we hold, where we deal with issues of the past, issues that have affected people, and try and restore the person so that they know who they are first. And then we can deal with other things like their marriage and empowerment in business and things like that.
So tell me about the Freedom Conferences. Like, where do you hold them? What are the kinds of things that happen at the conferences? And also, specifically as well, going back to Migrant Family Support, who is this available to? Is this only for Zimbabweans? Is this only for immigrants from Africa? Like, who can take advantage of the services?
So primarily with Migrant Family Support, we do cater for migrants of African origin. But anyone can access our services. But what we've realized is that there are many services for Indigenous people who are white British. Jamaicans are another group of people in the UK. Asian population, so Indians, people from Pakistan. They have a lot of organizations which cater for their communities, but there's a gap for our community. So we are focusing on migrants of African origin, and not just Zimbabweans, but Malawians, Zambians, Nigerians, Ghanaians, anyone really from the continent of Africa. Our issues are similar, and therefore even our solutions are similar as well. And with Freedom, I'll go on to Freedom, we've been hosting the conferences since 2016, and so this is our third year. We host them across the country. So this year we're having a small conference for 38 women in March, and then another one in Manchester in June, then Scotland in September. And what happens at these Freedom conferences, we talk about issues that affect people, but which culturally we're not encouraged to talk about. So issues like abuse, child abuse, the effects of witnessing domestic violence as a child, issues that will have affected a lot of people perhaps from their early years when they were growing up, which are affecting them as adults. So recognizing root causes for behaviors. What we found is if you're trying to help, for example, a married couple in our marriage support, you will find that each individual has got their own issues from when they were growing up, which they've now carried over into their relationships. So that's why we started with Freedom, which is uprooting people from some of the issues which have affected them. Where we started from was from my own experience. So I was raised in Bulawayo, and I witnessed quite a lot of domestic violence. There was, it seems to be I thought it was the norm. I just thought that's what happened in everyone's home. But it affected me in my marriage in the sense that I didn't want to allow my husband to ever even step out of line. So I was very, very defensive. I had walls from the beginning, and he didn't understand why he couldn't get past these walls and why I would flip at the smallest thing. But it was only when I received my freedom and when I was able to go back and actually realize how these issues had affected me. And there are issues that we would never talk about, because if you talk about domestic violence in your home, it's as if you're disrespecting your parents. But for me, it was actually coming to the realization that this is how this has impacted me as an adult. And then I just started talking to other women and realizing that there were so many of us who had experiences in our childhood which really affected us now as adults. So with Freedom, that's what we do. We go back so that we can move forward. And we go back and we're vulnerable. I'm vulnerable. I'm open. So as I'm open and vulnerable, that leads other people to be open and vulnerable. So we go where not many people want to go, and we talk about those issues that we're not usually encouraged to talk about.
Rumbi, you bring up a really great point that I think for many people, I think in our culture in Zimbabwe, we have a saying that says, "Chakafukitsa dzimba matenga," which is pretty much, you keep what happens in your home. And so what was your family's response then when you became quite public in the sense that you shared publicly some of the challenges and the issues that you'd experienced? And I think you even wrote a book as well, right?
Yes, I wrote a book called Girl in the Mirror. So my first book, the first version of my book, because I wrote it quite a long time ago, I sent it to my siblings first. And they were not happy at all with me. And they were very, very upset about why would I want to do that. They didn't understand why. I have a mentor, my pastor, and he said to me, just wait. Perhaps don't publish your book now, and let's just carry on just leave it for a bit. So the first one that I wrote was from a place of brokenness when I wasn't even healed, and it reflected in the tone of my book. So I don't think that book was going to help anyone, because what it was just me spilling out everything. My father passed away in 2014. I had some time to understand some of the challenges that he faced, and started to see him as an individual. And I think I'm quite a spiritual person, so I believe that God gave me an opportunity to actually see my dad also as a broken person who also had his own challenges and own stresses. And perhaps my judgment of him had been very harsh. So after he died, I rewrote my book again. And this one, it was very different from the other one. I think it came from a place of someone who's healed. So even when my siblings read it, they were happy with it, and they actually encouraged me to do it. And they said, if it can help someone, that's great. And I got a lot of support from them. My mom, I didn't actually show her the book at all before I published it, and just showed it to her afterwards, and then ran away and came back to England. And she says, oh, why didn't you tell me all these things? And I said, oh, it was just not something that was encouraged for us to talk about it, but I really want to help people. But what really blessed me was I went home last year, and there were a few conferences where I spoke, and my mom was my biggest cheerleader, and she was organizing for me to go and speak. She said, you need to speak to those women because those women have been abused, so I think they need help from you. So she was telling me where to go, and she was taking me with her, and she was listening. She supported me in everything. And I think for her, it also gave her a sense of what she's gone through. And I see her as a strong woman, a strong woman who's gone through a lot, who sacrificed a lot for her children. And she's so happy that other women in that situation can also receive help. And now she also helps other people as well. So it's had such a ripple effect of positivity and openness and transparency that I didn't expect at the beginning. And so it's been really good.
So what was it that helped you? Because you obviously didn't have a Rumbi sharing her experience, but what was it that helped you take that step to, as you described it, to gaining your freedom?
So for me, it was a spiritual thing. It was, let me try and describe it to someone who, I don't want to use Christianese, and for someone who hasn't had that experience, perhaps, who might be listening. For me, it was in a church meeting, literally. My pastor, who is my mentor, he saw something in me and realized that something happened when I was 6 years old. So he called me out and he said, what happened at this age in a church meeting? And I didn't say anything, but I started crying. But he started telling me. So he was having like a prophetic word. Like he started telling me that this happened and God wants to heal you. And I started crying. After that meeting, I couldn't stop crying, and that's when it started. So I let everything out, not to him, but just by myself. I just started dealing with issues and realizing why I acted in certain ways, why I was how I was, why I had such low self-esteem. No matter what I had achieved professionally, I still had very low self-esteem, and I had anger issues. So I actually started confronting the issues in my life which I saw that weren't quite right, and realizing where it had stemmed from. So that triggered something in me, and I started a journey, which was a journey that I went through on my own. I like journaling, so I just started writing, and that writing really helped me. Going to meetings in church where people would pray with you, that really helped me. So I did receive a lot of support from my church. And also just on my own, just reading and going through it, writing, and just reflecting and going back. And memories just started coming back, because I think sometimes you lock away memories. So memories just started coming out. So for me, that was it was quite a unique journey. It was very painful because it was very difficult to confront those things. But it was something that took me a good 12 months as I went through. I'm not finally free. I don't think you ever become totally free, but you do reach a level of freedom. but you keep on. So like now I actually read about these issues. I actually equip myself, and in helping others, I find that I always gain more in helping others.
Now, you talked about your husband. You mentioned your husband. Like, what was his role, or how did he feel, or how did he react as you were going through this 12 months of trying to figure yourself out?
He was great, and he's a very kind person. That's how I can describe him. He's kind, he's very gentle and very understanding. So he would, if I'm crying, he would just, he would hold me, he would listen. He's not a judgmental person, and he was just there for me. And I think for him it was, oh, great, I can finally understand what's wrong with this woman sometimes. So I think he had answers, but he also started his own journey, which was really good, because as I was sharing, I think for him, I think it's always a ripple effect that when you speak to people, they then start reflecting on their own life. And he started reflecting on his own life, how he acts in certain ways and why he does things the way he does. So for him, it was also a journey of healing. And we sometimes share together now at couples meetings. So we speak together at couples meetings and share about our respective journeys. So he hasn't yet written a book, but he does talk. He's a great teacher, and he's a very good speaker, but he's not an extrovert, so he doesn't like talking as much as I do. But when he does, it's great, yeah.
Now, I had the good fortune of speaking to your daughter, Tasha, who is 11 and is just a phenomenal young woman. And I'm just so excited to see what life holds for her, because she has so much self-confidence. And I'm interested to know, as a mom who grew up and who struggled with self-confidence, how have you been able to pass on to your daughter so that she has so much self-confidence? Or how have you done that? Or what are the messages that you've shared with her?
So I've always seen, I think, because when we grew up, I think we were encouraged, but our encouragement was more of, if you don't do this, there was a lot of, it wasn't more of, you can do this, you're able, so if you fail, there were repercussions for failing. So it wasn't.
You can be honest, Rumbi. You can say it. It was fear-based. We were afraid for our lives.
We get hit if we failed, So it was just fear-based, honestly. So I I'd seen that wasn't good. So with our children, we were different, and we spoke the word of God over their lives from when they were very little. We would tell them that they can be anything that they set their minds to, that they're capable, that they're beautiful. So we've always reinforced that in all of them, and they're all great. All three of them are really wonderful children in their own unique ways. So we've also tried to instill that in them, that you're different, but being different doesn't mean one is less than the other. So we've consciously and intentionally done that from a very young age. And we've also invested in their education, that they would get, we were quite selective in where they go to school. And the school that my daughter goes to is a very good school, and the teachers are good. So there's an empowerment culture there as well. So they've become very, very empowered. And they watch and learn, I think, as well, seeing what we do. Do we try our best? They see us trying, they see us working hard. So that also encourages them to try their best.
Now, what's interesting, which you mentioned earlier on, I think, is that you and your husband work together. Now, I know that can be an interesting and challenging dynamic. Tell me about working together and how you make it work.
Oh dear, we're still learning how to make it work. Oh, it's really, really challenging. It's so hard. And I think what throws a spanner in the works is that my husband is a teacher by profession, and I'm a solicitor. So when we work at the solicitor's practice together, I'm his boss. So that just makes it really difficult, because at home we change the roles. We have to have one head of our family, and we can't have two heads, because we've realized that we have to have that, and he's the head of the home. So at work, I'm the boss. So that's been really challenging, and that's something that we've had to navigate with wisdom, with experience, learning from our mistakes. And we fall out sometimes, and we do take work to the bedroom when we're not supposed to. But if we have a problem at work, we do bring it home. And we've learned from our mistakes. It hasn't been easy at all. And if anyone asks us what's the biggest challenge that we've had in our marriage, it's working together. I think that's been a really, really big challenge. But I think we've done okay. We haven't killed each other yet. So
that's always
we're
good.
Still alive. Yeah, we're still alive to tell the tale.
Now, Rumbi, one thing that I find so interesting about you is I obviously follow you on social media. I read a lot of the stuff, and you're an incredible writer. You're such a beautiful writer. Is just how much of yourself you're so willing to share. And has that ever been problematic? I know you talked about, your siblings were a little bit upset when you originally wrote your book, and even, for your husband as well, how much you share. Does he ever feel some kind of way about what you share?
No, not really, because we pray a lot together. That's one of the things that really hold us together is our faith. And I sense a lot from what God tells me to do or what I hear or directions that I get. So he's learned to trust my intuition or this third spiritual dimension in our life. So he's learned to trust that because he's seen, okay, she hears, and so it's been right. So when I told him that, you know what, I really believe that I've been mandated to share openly, and it's not something that I want to do. It's not something that I really think, you know what, God, why didn't you just give me a different role in the kingdom of God? So I really resisted. But I kept saying to him, you know what, I really feel this strongly. So it's something that we prayed through together. We sat down. We really reflected on the word. We spoke to our mentor, he's 70 odd. He's really a lovely man. He's like a father to us. So we did speak. We said to him, this is what we're feeling. This is what we are sensing. And I want to know that it's right. And at the end of the day, I think everyone knows that I'm ultimately answerable to God. And that's what I always say even to my family, that, you might not like it, but I've seen how I've listened to direction and listened to the promptings that I feel inside that inner voice, and it hasn't been wrong so far. So I would rather go with that than go with my own thoughts or my own hopes or what I want to do. So I live a life that's very much led in terms of my spirituality and how I'm led to do things. So even in sharing, it's something that I struggled with as well. So it wasn't just him. I didn't want that. I think one of the things I share about is that I was raped. I was quite a rebellious teenager. I don't know if you knew, because we grew up together. I don't know if you knew how rebellious I was. I was quite naughty.
You were the good one.
Oh, I wasn't good.
Well, you sure kept the bad undercover, because I was always compared to you. It's like, look at Rumbi. She's so sweet and she's so nice. And look at her. She studies hard. What's wrong with you?
I was a good actress then. So I share all about that, and that just makes me bare, and I think, oh my gosh, now everyone knows. So I think, but it's just obedience, I suppose, that and when I see the response and the results, and I see how it impacts other people, it makes it so worthwhile. So even like my husband, when he hears some of the testimonies from like freedom or things like that, he's just blown away, and that makes him so much more supportive.
Where do you see, what's your vision for what you want to do with both your law firm, with the Freedom Conferences, with the Migrant Family Support? Like, what's your vision for 2018, and where do you see it in 5 years from now?
Yeah, so I see myself really stepping back from doing law as in, so you see, I'm not really a lawyer. When you look at other lawyers, they're really clever, and I hate going to court. I hate anything to do with the law. But what I love is the people. So for me, it's so providing a solution for people. That's what motivates me, and that's what I get up for every morning. So I'm stepping back from doing the law element of it, not as much. I'll just be doing a little bit, but not so much, and really, really focusing on migrant family support. So in 5 years' time, freedom is an integral part of the family support, because I've seen that we helped women, but they'd go back home to face the same challenges. So it's all in together. But I see in 5 years' time that migrant family support will not just be supporting migrants, but also I really have a heart to support people in Zimbabwe. So I would love to have restoration, education and empowerment villages in Zimbabwe where we help women and young girls specifically, because they're still very marginalized in Zimbabwe more than here, where women are much more empowered. So I see myself in spending a lot more time in Zimbabwe, and that's what I'm planning to do from now on. As the children are a bit older, I can make more trips there and back, and then hopefully we'll reach a time where we can spend half of our time there and here, but doing a lot more work in Zimbabwe. So that's where my heart is, and that's where I'd love to be.
Now, something that I saw actually recently, which, as I said, I follow you on social media. I know that you and your brother are involved in some way in a trust in Zimbabwe that supports. Yes, tell me about that.
So, yeah, I do so many things, eh?
I know. I was like, where do I start? Like, how are we going to fit this all in our conversation?
Yeah. So, Tugwi Trust. So, my dad, he really loved helping people. I think that's where we got this helping people thing from. So my dad he once bought a football and went to do a football tournament for the young people in Chivi, where we come from, at the village that we come from. So he did a football tournament with them, and just to motivate them and encourage them. And then he brought mazoe and oranges. And the next year he bought a sports kit, and it started to be an annual thing. And then he bought a trophy. So it's something that he did on a very small scale. As he grew older, he asked my brother to help him. So Kudzai helped him, and then basically took it over from him when he passed away. And it's now extended from not just a sports day. It's involving 10 schools which come for a sports day, but it's not just for football, it's for netball, for volleyball. So we have a sports day over 2 days when all the children come. It's something they look forward to. They get uniforms, they get trophies, they get medals. So it's really the highlight of their year. And in addition to that, we do a leadership development program for the sports captains. So all the captains from all the teams, Tugwi Trust does a leadership development program with them, equipping them as the leaders of tomorrow. So we see that they've got leadership skills from leading the teams, and that's how we chose them. And then in addition to that, we've got a program where we pay school fees for the children. At the moment, we're paying for 60 children.
Wow. Can we just pause on that fact? So 60 as in 60.
Yes.
So there are 60 kids who might not otherwise have gone to school, who are going to school through the generosity of this trust that you and your brother are working on. Wow.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so there's 60 of them. So and lots of people have sponsored. So we did campaigns and for Sponsor a Child. So we've got people who've sponsored as well from all over the world, and a lot of people in Zimbabwe as well. So and what else do we do with Tugwi? Tugwi also has a project called Pamushana, which helps girls in the Chivi area, or in most rural areas in Zimbabwe. You find young girls getting married at the age of 12. 13, and I was horrified to think this is happening in Zimbabwe. I didn't think that it was actually happening in Zimbabwe, the child marriages. But a lot of girls, because they can't go to school, the family feels it's better for them to get married, so they get married, sometimes as the third, fourth wife. So with Pamushana, it's teaching them. They sit in the sunshine under a tree, and it's the girls and their mothers, because one of the things we've realized is that you can teach the girls, but when they go back home, their mothers still have those same old values, and they still might treat the girls differently. So the girls do a lot more housework than the boys. So their academic performance was much lower than the boys. And we realized that started at home. So that's why we started the Pamushana project at the school, where the girls and their mothers come together. They sit in the sun and they talk about issues. And we get speakers to come from the towns to go and speak to them and empower them and encourage them and let them, just for them to aspire for more than just to get married as soon as possible. So, yeah, so that's what Tugwi does. So, yeah, Tugwi's, work and the remit is just, it's phenomenal. And there's so many volunteers in Zimbabwe, which is amazing because there's so many people with such skills, diverse skills, who make Tugwi Trust run so well.
That's incredible. So if people want to get involved or want to donate, where can they find more information?
They can follow us on our Facebook page, which is called Tugwi Trust. Yeah, I think that's the best place, or the website, www.tugwitrust.co.zw.
Okay, and I'll make sure that we include links to all of this information. I'll also make sure, I know your book, I think it's available on Amazon, am I right?
Amazon, yes it is, yes.
Okay, so I'll make sure as well that we include a link to your book. And I wanted to ask you, what brings you the most joy?
Yeah, what brings me the most joy? A lot of things bring me joy. Just spending time with my children and my husband, when we just have downtime as a family, those are my happiest moments, and seeing them become everything that they want to be. So I love empowering people, but when I see my own children empowered and happy, that makes me really, really happy. That brings me the most joy. And seeing my son, we had a bit of a challenge with my son in the middle, and I think he felt a bit overshadowed by the other two. But seeing him blossoming and flourishing and becoming his own person, and that really brings me joy. So with each one of them, they're so special. And so being with them and seeing them becoming all they can be and sharing their joys and sharing their successes, that brings me a lot of joy.
Wow, you truly are so inspiring, Rumbi. I am blown away by all of the things that you are doing and just how big your heart is and what you're doing to help others. And the thing about what you're doing, for example, like even with Tugwi Trust and educating 60 kids, is that what you're doing is so far reaching because, yes, you're educating this one child today, but think of what that education and the impact is for generations to come. So I am just so in awe of everything that you're doing. What we're going to do now is switch things up just a little bit, and we're going to do a really quick round of quick fire questions. So I don't want you to think about them, just literally the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask you this question. Okay. So describe yourself in 3 words.
Strong, courageous, fearless.
When you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Strive Masiwa.
Favorite book?
The Bible.
Favorite gift to give?
Money.
Favorite gift to receive?
Shoes. Christian Louboutin. Christian Louboutin shoes.
Yeah, specifically. Favorite thing about the place you live?
My bedroom.
And favorite item of clothing? You're not allowed
My
to think,
jeans.
Rumbizai.
My jeans.
Favorite time of day?
Morning.
Name 2 people you'd like to have dinner with. And this one's, we'll give an extension. 2 people you'd like to have dinner with and why?
Barack Obama. Because he's just amazing. I love him and his wife. But there'll be as one person.
You're breaking the rules here. Breaking the rules here. All right. So Barack Obama and Michelle as one person. And the other person?
Is Strive Masiwa.
Why?
I really admire him. I love the fact that he's so bold, courageous, unashamedly Christian, and he's achieved so much. He's the first billionaire official in Zimbabwe. So I'd love to hear how he's done it and just to get to know him more. So I'd love to have dinner with him.
And I think your daughter, Tasha, would want to have dinner with him because she told me that by the time she's 16, she wants to have made her first million. So I'm sure she can pick up some pointers from him. Okay, back to you. Favorite meal or thing to eat?
Sadza and oxtail.
Do you know how many people have said that? Sadza and oxtail. It seems to be like every person from Zimbabwe that I've interviewed, it's sadza and oxtail.
Sadza and oxtail.
The last great meal you had?
Roast lamb and potatoes.
What can't you get through the day without?
Chewing gum.
What's the screensaver on your phone or on your computer?
On my computer, it's the 3 T's, my children.
What's your favorite app on your phone?
The taxi one, Uber. Saved.
Other than your phone and your purse, what do you carry with you every day?
My makeup bag.
What's the favorite place you've ever visited?
Crete in Greece.
What's your favorite song? Or if you had to pick a theme song for your life, what would it be?
I Know Who I Am by Sinach. We always sing it with Tasha.
What's your worst habit?
Laughing nervously in inappropriate places.
Did you say like just now? What do you wish you had more of in your life?
Money. I would love to have more money, yeah.
And what's a question you wish people would ask you?
How are you? But not just how are you, but really mean it. Because sometimes I think people ask glibly and they don't really want to hear.
That is very true. Alrighty, so thank you, Rumbi. It was, oh my gosh, this was such a joy for me to talk to you and to just hear about the inspiring and amazing things that you and your family are doing and the incredible support that you're offering to people who really need it. Where can people find you or how can people connect with you?
They can connect with me on Facebook, Rumbi Bvunzawabaya. So it's my full name, Rumbi Bvunzawabaya.
Oh, and I would give a prize to anyone who can just spell that off the top of their head. But I will include a link with the show notes. We'll make sure we include a link so that people don't have to figure out how to spell Bvunzawabaya.
Yeah.
I'll make sure we do that. And a last question, final question, Rumbi, and then I will let you go. As you know, this is the Ndini podcast, and Ndini in our language is I am, and I truly believe in the power of I am and what you say after that really determining your destiny. And so I'm interested to know how you would finish that sentence. I am.
I am beautiful, bold, courageous, and tenacious.
Oh, well, I don't know that I can add anything to that. Rumbi, it truly has been my joy to speak to you, to have this time to talk to you. And I appreciate you making time for me. I know you're super busy with all 50 things that you're working on. But thank you so much for being part of the Ndini podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ndini podcast. I don't take even a single listener for granted. As you know, my goal with this platform is to help shift and change the narrative on Africa, and in particular about African women. But I need your help to do that. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher. You can also follow us on SoundCloud. And please share. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. It helps me to bring great guests to the show, and it also helps others discover the podcast. And of course, I always want to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my conversation with our guest today and what you took away from it or what inspired you. I'd also love to hear from you if you have suggestions for other women you think I should absolutely have on the show. Our handle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is @Ndini Media. Or you can reach out to me through our website, which is ndini.com. That's NDINI.com. Until next time, I'm Sandra Chuma. Be well.